This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, was it a bin buster? We went to the bin to see. And how much is that acre in the window? And now I call that a truly happy meal. All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. This week sure does feel like October. Beautiful blue skies, cool crisp air, and overfilled grain trucks raining soybeans on my windshield. What a great month. You know, we talk to farmers all year long, and we'll be talking to the crop guys next week to see how they're doing. Be sure to tune in then. But today I wanted to hear how the growing season looked from the other end of the production cycle, the elevator operator. So we traveled to the ends of the earth. Okay. We just traveled to the end of Coles County and visited with Jim Tolan. With me now is Jim Tolan of the Tate & Lyle elevator, the Coles elevator, the Tate & Lyle system. And Jim, how's the harvest look to you guys?
Harvest was down this year. I'd say in our area, corn averaged 85 to 90. A lot of pressure this summer with the dry weather.
So were the guys sitting in here for coffee during the summer, what were they moaning about? What were they thinking?
I think basically they were thinking a little worse. The corn come in a little better than we anticipated, but still not a good crop, about a half a crop, about half of normal.
So do you see farmers getting crop to you faster this year?
Yeah, it's been stretched out. It couldn't rain all summer long, and then we finally got the rains, and it kind of backed this crop up a little bit. The crop went through a second growth. And kept it a little, which was probably a good thing. Kept it a little more matured, come along a little better than what we had anticipated. So, but the corn harvest was stretched out a little, and there's still some corn to come in.
Right. There's some, So the rain really sort of put the brakes on harvest, hasn't it?
Yeah. It's in this area here. I think there's some guys have had as much as 18 inches since the since the 1st of August, and it has set back a little bit, but it took a lot of rain to do that.
So how much corn do you think you're going to process this year?
We're going to handle probably through this facility. We're going to handle somewhere to the tune of 3 million, 2.7 to 3 million, somewhere in there. On-farm storage is basically empty. Everything comes to the facility, so we're basically full right now.
So that is probably due to the aflatoxin scare.
The aflatoxin scare had some something to do with it. $8 corn was just a thing that the guy said, why do I want to store $8 corn? Brought it to the elevator. Yeah, we probably bought 80% of what was coming across the scales.
So what did you find with aflatoxin? Was there a lot, or just?
We had a testing lab back here, and we tested. We did some composite testing, and we did some testing every 5 to 10 loads, and we never saw any major problems. It's not that it wasn't there, because it was there. Some areas have some major issues. It's going to be something that we're going to be working with and dealing with probably all winter long.
So have you seen any other problems with this year's crops?
Except the fact that the yield was down. The quality had been fairly good on the corn. Soybeans have had some issues. The late maturity, some of the early matured beans, and the soybeans taking on a second growth has made it rough for these guys to combine.
So what have you seen in the soybean harvest so far?
Soybean yields are better than we anticipated. The late rains did help. I'd say 45 is going to be a good average. Some 50 bushel yields, some 30 bushel yields. But overall, pleasingly pleased with the crop.
The crop is looking good, and the beans themselves are looking fine?
Quality of the beans, some of the early beans, the quality was not all the greatest. There is some damage in some of these beans from field damage, from bug damage, from late maturity. It's affected some of the quality, but now some of the later beans coming in are better.
Okay, so how far along do you think the farmers are here with harvest?
I'd say we're 98% done with corn. Beans, we're probably bumping up against 50% now.
Okay. So how long do you think this is going to take them?
Weather permitting, next couple of weeks we should have most of this stuff knocked out.
Okay. So what are the farmers saying about the price? $8 corn is great.
$8 corn's great, and I think...
Are they worried that it's going to go up and they'll miss out?
Well, yeah, there's a possibility, and the story probably hasn't been told on the crop yet. There's some areas that are coming in better than anticipated, some not as good, and I think the overall supply situation could be a tough one next summer. We could be fighting for supply and fighting for control of some of this grain.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jim. I really appreciate you talking to us.
I appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Shortly after I finished the interview with Jim, the October crop report came through, so I gave a call to our friend Brad Schwab at the NASS to find out what's in the report. And now from the NASS office of the USDA in Springfield is Brad Schwab. And Brad, I just got the October crop report. Some surprises in there, aren't there?
Well, that's right. We went down on our corn yield by 12 bushels. We're currently at 98. We dropped below 100. And then for soybeans, we increased that 2 bushel to 39 bushels per acre. So soybeans are up a little bit from September. Corn is definitely down. And farmers, in the last month, since September, they've been out in their fields, and harvest is 80% complete now. So
Right.
Got a lot of reports from them that have actually finished harvest, and they actually know what their final yields are, and that's been reflected in the October crop production report.
So the market reacted to this report yesterday, and prices went up quite a bit. Were they not expecting this?
I think the industry guesses, if you will, had been indicating that the U.S. production was going to be going up slightly, and conversely, it went down slightly from September. So that did prompt some bullish prices in the corn markets. So. What about beans? The beans estimate actually went up. So the rain helped, but are we still? It's still down from what we would have hoped for at the beginning of the year, correct? Well, that's right. I mean, 39 bushels per acre in Illinois is definitely below our trend line yield. The increase we saw from September, I think we can partially attribute it to the late rains in August from Isaac. Mm-hmm. Even though the plants didn't add additional blooms and pods, it did help to plump up those seeds and those in the beans that were there. And one of the things we found from our objective yield samples is the test weight for the soybeans is one of the highest test weights that we've ever had coming from our objective yield survey. So, Brad, we live in the east-southeast district, and we really got the brunt of the drought this year. Our yields are down, and we know it, but how were other parts of the state, and was the drought uniform across the state in cutting down yields? Well, actually, the further south you went in the state, the worse the yields were. So if we went down to the southeastern crop reporting district, we're only estimating 50 bushel per acre for corn yields there. And then as we work our way north, through the east-southeast that you were talking about is at 77, and then when we get up into the northwest crop reporting district, we're at 119. But all of these yields for all these districts are significantly below what the trendline yield is for that area. So those are almost soybean yields down here, aren't they? That's right. We would expect 50 bushel average for soybeans in the southwest district in Illinois. Okay, and we can see the same trend lines with beans, correct? That's right. They basically have the same situation. Looking across the state, the beans were better up north as opposed to down south because of the drought. Nationally, what are we seeing from the national crop estimates? Well, at the U.S. level, we saw that corn production was down slightly from September, of course, and that's what prompted the increase in prices. The soybean production at 2.86 billion bushels was up 9% from September, but down 8% from last year. So it was up significantly from our September crop production report. Yeah, I think so it's all over the place, isn't it? That's right. Okay. Well, this is not the last crop report of the year. We have one more coming up in November that should really tie things up, correct? That's correct. Okay. Well, go ahead. And then our final yields in production will be put out in January of 2013. Okay. Well, we'll be talking to you around those points to find out how we finished up this lousy ball game, correct? That's right, Fred. So the farmers now, they're just hoping to get some moisture in the ground so that it'll carry into next year, and especially for the soft red winter wheat farmers that the crop germinates. I may even tolerate a little bit more snow if that would get the moisture up. So thank you, Brad. All right, thank you, Fred.
If you like tastier bacon, you might consider a trip to the toy store. With that story and more is Monica Becker. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Monica Becker. A short drive will tell you what the USDA is reporting. The farmers are busy. The good weather around the state has allowed the combines to roll, although the rain and muddy fields put us in the back of the pack. The Illinois crop report shows that corn is rated at 98% matured and is being brought in at a good clip. 71% has been harvested, up from 54% last week. We're still way ahead from 2011 and the 5-year averages of 29 and 33%. In the East Southeast District, corn is reported as 100% matured, but only 85% has been harvested. Soybeans statewide are reported at 98% turning yellow, 85% dropping leaves, and 22% harvested, up from 8% last week. Some farmers reported some frost damage to late crop soybeans. Locally, we are slightly behind that at 98% turning yellow, 85% dropping leaves, and 12% harvested. The soil moisture has returned to pre-drought status. Topsoil is reported at 7% very short, 11% short, 40% adequate, and 9% surplus. The subsoil is basically in the same range as it was last week, 16% very short, 37% short, and 47% adequate. Now, a Macon County meatpacking plant has voluntarily recalled about 90 pounds of ground beef products that may be contaminated with bacteria. The beef is from the Stewart Brothers plant in Decatur and was recalled because the products were made from beef trim potentially contaminated with E. coli that was subject from another recall. The products were produced on September 12th and mostly distributed to local restaurants. Agriculture.com is reporting that the average acre of Iowan farmland is at the $10,000 mark. While prices for farmland have slowed a bit and the top prices we saw last year this time are not being matched, prices have increased on average 7.5% during March through September. That gain means that the average acre of high-quality farmland is now $10,455 per acre. The Chicago Federal Reserve Bank has indicated that the growth of farmland prices has slowed nationwide, with only a growth of 1 to 2%. So you Hawkeyes, enjoy it while you've got it. And if you want a better ham sandwich, find a happy pig. Pig farmers in England are finding out that anxious or bored pigs create less tasty meat. Stressed pigs, it seems, release more of the stress hormone called cortisol. Cortisol affects muscles and therefore the quality of the meat, making the pork paler and softer. So now many farmers are playing Santa to their hogs, giving them ropes, balls, traffic cones, rubber boots, chains, and even bowling balls. The study provided by the British Pig Executive, we checked this one out, they actually exist, shows that as the pigs play, they are often healthier. Now they may be healthier and tastier, but could this lead to the farmers complaining that all the toys scattered around makes the room look like a pigsty? That's it for this week. I'm Monica Becker.
Well, in walking across campus today, I walked through my first pile of leaves and I looked up and imagine my surprise, the trees have changed, it's fall and it's time to think about fall tree care. And Dave Shiley, our good friend from the local Ag Extension office, is here. And Dave, we're barking right up your tree, aren't we?
There you go.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, fall is a great time to take care of lots of different types of plants and trees in particular. What sort of things can we do, should we think about doing in fall?
In the fall, you want to, first of all, if you planted a tree in the last couple years, you need to continue to water that tree.
Really? After even 2-3 years into the cycle?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Especially if it's any kind of I was going to say container grown or balled burlap, large tree, but it takes a while for those roots to expand. And if we have a dry fall, early winter, and we have a warm winter like we did last year, then you really need to continue to water that tree. The tree has a lot of root growth until the soil temperature gets below 30 degrees.
Oh,
those roots are actually growing.
So the tree may be bare up on top, but it's still active underneath.
Yes,
A lot like us, right?
that's right.
Okay. So water. When should we stop watering?
Well, when the ground freezes.
Okay.
So if we, again, if we have a warm winter, then you might be watering, and an inch of water every week and a half or so,
Okay.
or week to week and a half, if we're not getting it from natural,
Okay.
precipitation.
Okay.
So the other thing that, along with that, root growth is fertilization. If you haven't fertilized your tree, and it seems to be under some stress.
Okay, so it's almost counterintuitive. Everything else is turning brown and being depressed, but it might not be a bad time to fertilize your trees.
No, and trees, you can fertilize and split that rate of application in half. You want about a pound of nitrogen there in 1,000 square feet. So you could split that, no more than 2 pounds. So you could split that maybe a half to a pound in the fall, and then in March when things are starting, kind of like our split application
Okay.
in commercial agriculture.
Okay.
Providing a little bit of nutrients, but not too much, where it's going to, get into our surface water. So it's a good idea to give that tree a shot
Okay.
of fertilizer.
Now, what about pruning? This seems that, you see the bare limbs now, you can see which ones you want to go for. Is this a good time to prune trees?
Yeah, it's for the most part, it's an excellent time because you can see what you're doing and look for those, you want strong branch unions where that branch attaches to the tree. So anytime you see something that looks like the letter V, a V-shaped branch union is going to be weak, and it actually has included wood where that wood is not.
Okay.
It's kind of like putting your hands together. They can be pulled apart pretty easily. It's not very strong. And when that tree gets bigger and the branch gets heavier, then you see that split in an ice storm or a windstorm.
Okay, so if the tree is if the branch is like this,
Yep.
don't cut it there. If it's more
if it's U-shaped, then you could leave that. But if it's V-shaped, then remove one.
okay,
And
that will
let it go on up.
strengthen. Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Now, what about shrubs? The flowers have gone away, the leaves are drying up. What can we do for shrubs this time of year?
Well, same thing. We can do some, and it depends on the type of shrub it is. But there's everything from shrub rejuvenation. If it's old, then depending on the kind of shrub, the species of shrub or group of shrub that it is, you can do a renovation cut. So pruning, and that's where you're cutting it all the way to the ground.
Now, trees look big and sturdy and everything, but wildlife can affect the trees too. What can we do about that?
Yeah, so wildlife, especially deer and rabbits, can, and in some places, if you're living along the river, beaver.
Okay.
All eating the bark off the tree,
Yes.
the buds, with deer browsing on those branches. But anytime a small tree, the smaller it is, the more likely they're gonna kill the tree. And antler rubbing. So
Okay.
need to offer some kind of protection for that small tree, putting a cage around that, made of welded wire or chicken wire.
Okay, so just a physical barrier between wildlife and the young tree keeps the abrasion and the eating of the bark
Right,
to a
keep
minimum.
their teeth away from it.
Now, here another counterintuitive idea is this a good time to plant new trees?
Yeah, it's a really good time for the container-grown trees and balled and burlapped trees. The small bare-rooted seedlings, better off planting those in the spring.
Okay.
But fall-planted tree of those container or balled and burlap trees is a great time to plant trees. And again, just make sure that you are watering that tree, and you don't need to fertilize necessarily a newly planted tree. But
So where can somebody find some of these tips for winter prep and for tree care?
yeah, on our University of Illinois Extension website, we've got several, tree selection, tree care, pruning shrubs, taking care of roses in the fall. There's some work that needs to be done there. And then our plant clinic can be found on our website, how to submit a sample, how to collect a good sample, and how much it's going to cost.
So there's no question for wondering why or what's going on, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, Dave, thank you so much, and have a great fall.
Thank you.
Cameron Craig shows us an ice storm on steroids in this week's Under the Four Rivers Sky.
As a child during one of my family's excursions through Illinois, I remember yelling from the back seat, "Dad, why is it so flat and boring here?" My father, a farmer from Indiana, answered, "Thousands of years ago, glaciers towered above the landscape and shaped the land we see today. The new landscape, as old as 15,000 years, set the foundation of agriculture here in central Illinois and the Midwest."
Glacial formation is dependent upon the Earth's climate shifting from hot to extremely cold. 4 glacial periods have occurred recently over the last 650,000 years, and there is evidence that the cycle of glacial formation has occurred for more than 2 million years.
The glacier, the ice, forms as a result of a change in Earth's climate. We're not exactly sure why the climate changes from hot to cold, but it has done that periodically over the last 2 million years and before that too. So what happens is the temperatures go down, the snow and ice that was stored over a winter time doesn't quite melt back as far as it had the year before, and this goes on and on for a period of a couple thousand years. And before you know it, the snow line that usually melts back in North America up to Hudson Bay, well, it's down in Canada and a little bit below that, as evidenced by past glaciations over the last 2 million years.
2 glacial periods modify the Illinoisan landscape within the last 300,000 years. The first was the Illinoisan glaciation that occurred between 300,000 to 175,000 years before present. And the second was the Wisconsin glaciation between 75,000 to 15,000 years before present.
The last glaciers that came through the area came down in a lobe that came through Wisconsin and Michigan. And this glacier episode is called the Wisconsin glaciation, and it covers basically the northeast quarter of the state. There was another glacial episode previous to that that did cover almost all of the state. The one that covered nearly all the state was called the Illinoisan glacial episode, and it went all the way down to the Shawnee Hills and covered everything but just a fragment on the west side of the state and on the northwest side of the state.
Each glaciation provided a certain soil makeup that helped to establish a foundation for agriculture in this area. The quality of the soil is dependent upon the age of the glacial period.
In central Illinois, you have 2 different glacial ages exposed at the surface. You have the Wisconsin glacier deposits, which are those that are probably less than 15,000 years old in most places. And these are found in a line roughly going from Terre Haute over to Decatur and then about straight north. So that northeast segment of the state is covered by these young glacial deposits. The remainder of the state is covered by glacial deposits that have been sitting there for at least 175,000 years. So those that have been sitting around longer have been more weathered, and the minerals that provide nutrients to the soil have been more leached from the deposits, and also more clay has been left behind. So the older deposits, which cover about 2/3 of the state or so, are poor quality soils.
And finally, we've seen almost everything this year. A warm, wet spring, the you-know-what during the summer, aflatoxin scares, pesticide-resistant bugs, even frost nipping at some soybeans. What else can go wrong? How about a plague of stink bugs? Yep, those nasty little things you try to get your little sister to step on and squash and then laugh at her react. You didn't do that? Well, the mammated stink bug population has exploded, mostly due to the lack of natural predators and, you guessed it, the hot, dry summer. If they are frightened or if they're squished, well, let's just say you know it. The stink bug was eradicated years ago, but snuck back into the States from Asia in the 1990s. The worst infestation, I hear, is in the mid-Atlantic states, but the USDA now reports sightings in 38 states, including Illinois. When the weather starts getting cold, these odoriferous scoundrels head inside the homes and barns and garages, often nesting in attics. So, how do you get rid of a pest? With another pest? Researchers are testing a tiny parasitic wasp from Asia that could help reduce the stink bug population. The wasps are being tested in labs right now and haven't been released into the wild yet. I'm sure nothing can go wrong with that plan. That's the best we can do? Man, that stinks. So that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, avoid the parasitic wasps and the stink bugs. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.